Hey, good morning, friends. Today, my friends, is Friday, October the 17th, 2025, and the time now is 7:31 a.m. So, friends, I want to talk about the African diaspora, and I want to talk specifically about the situation between Africans or Africans and other black immigrants and the African Americans or black American community, or there are many who are terming themselves in America. Now, friends, in this case, I am talking about two groups, the two African American groups, ADOS, the American descendants of slaves, and also FBA, or Foundational Black Americans. Foundational Black Americans are said to be, or is said to be a group that basically emerged from ADOS. And both FBA and ADOS were founded by the same people, basically the same group of people. Many FBAs believe that they were in America first. They are descendants from blacks who have been in America and that they are the original Americans. They were here before the Native Americans. And many of these guys are saying that they do not want anything to do with Africa, that they are not Africans. And it is very interesting that there are many who are even attacking Pan-Africanism, saying that Pan-Africanism is a scam, Pan-Africanism needs to die, and that they are delineating from Africa and from the rest of the black African diaspora. And it is very interesting. This is a trend that have been taken over social media within or among the black population. It is very interesting, but it is also sad. Now, in terms of the conversation, there are many who've been saying lots of derogatory things about Africans and other black immigrants. One lady particularly had a very terrible experience in an African salon, and she took to social media, TikTok, basically calling for an August 1st boycotting of African businesses. We are talking about African restaurants, African salons, and so on. Another lady basically said that African Americans will eat anything, Indian food, Chinese food, but that they will not eat African food, that African food is nasty and all kinds of things. Basically, what I heard from many FBA was the sentiment that I heard, or the things that I heard from many African Americans or black Americans when I first migrated to the United States. There were cases where African Americans did not want anything to do with Africans. And once again, I will not blame them, because the way the Western media, and particularly the United States media, portrayed or projected Africans or Africa, I don't see why anybody would want to associate from or with Africa. And for African Americans or black Americans, people who've been disrespected for centuries, it makes sense for them to demand their respect and for them to try to not be within a community that is always disrespected or not being given flowers. So it is interesting. Now, in terms of the trend, many African Americans have been calling the fact that Africans have been disrespecting them, that Africans are saying that African Americans or black Americans do not have culture. And that trend and that particular piece is what people have been gravitating to, basically stitching their comments on. Now, in terms of culture, in the African context, what I've experienced with many Africans, direct to African Americans about culture, for many Africans, the whole notion of culture as it is teach or taught in the academic setting, which is culture, is basically referring to the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you eat, the things you wear, and all sort of things. Many Africans did not or have not come to terms with looking at the whole idea of hip-hop culture, of black American culture as is copied around the world as culture. For many Africans, the whole idea of culture is centered and is based specifically on ethnic culture, which to many Africans, African Americans, given their experience in terms of the Middle Passage, the Atlantic slavery or slave trade, and what they've experienced in the United States, that Africans have lost everything, or African Americans, if you will, have lost everything. They've lost their African languages, their African connection, and so on. This is what many Africans think of. This is what many Africans direct towards African Americans when they said that African Americans don't have no culture. But for many African Americans, they look at it as a derogatory perspective from or by Africans. Now, in terms of this culture conversation, I've heard even Black Americans and even white Americans spread the notion or discuss the notion that Americans or America doesn't have culture. And I've witnessed or observed conversation on social media and even in person. It zeroed in or narrowed in to the fact that America does not have the indigenous culture. This is given the fact that the indigenous Americans, they've either been decimated, their population, or that their practice have been minimized. So even white Americans, I've heard them stress the notion that America doesn't have culture. In this case, it does kind of correspond to what many Africans are saying, and which in this case is also derogatory and it is narrow-minded, because what it is saying is that the whole idea of culture is stereotypically ethnic indigenous culture. People are jumping, singing strange songs in their strange languages, making strange chants. Whether we are talking about Africa, Asia, Native American, indigenous people in the Americas, and so on. So I've heard even Americans themselves talking about how America doesn't have culture. And they base their argument solely on indigenous culture, which America does have, but because of the minimization of Native American culture and European cultures have been wiped out and basically been codified into one whiteness sentiment or narrative. They base the notion that America doesn't have no culture, which is not the case, because culture encompasses lots of things, not just indigenous culture. But for many African Americans, they base their discontent towards or about how Africans view them or how some Africans view them, basically and solely on the notion that Africans are saying that they do not have culture. Now, in terms of the disrespect from Africans toward African Americans, now it is bad, it is derogatory, and it needs to stop. It is unacceptable. However, for me, one thing I would say is that Black Americans, African Americans, ADARs or FBAs, I do believe whatever term they may use or they want to be identified as, I believe that they also need to look in the mirror in order to be able to acknowledge or accept or own the fact that the disrespect that Africans directed to them, the disrespect that they get from Africans and other immigrants, they themselves participate in those sentiments that generate the disrespect, whether they themselves disrespected Africans or not. Look, the truth here is we never talk about this in our Black community, but for many Africans and Black immigrants in the United States, they too face disrespect, derogatory statement or comments towards or about them. And the disrespect that they face, the bad experiences, many Black immigrants and Africans will say that it comes primarily and mostly from Black Americans or African Americans or ADARs or FBA, whichever term you want to use. So my thing here is African Americans, ADARs, Black Americans, FBAs need to also acknowledge the fact that this disrespect is not a one-way street. It is two-way. It is both ways. Both groups have been disrespecting one another. And what I'm seeing actually, for me, from the African American culture, it is basically the American ego at play. It's a sentiment which I've observed even the American government or the United States as a country doing it around the world, where when countries and people around the world snap, the U.S. government will say they don't like us because we love freedom or because so and so, they hate us. But never America will accept the fact that, or to look itself in the mirror, acknowledge the fact that it may have done something around the world and now experiencing the blowback. In this case, in terms of many Black Americans, they are right to acknowledge, to accept that Africans and others are disrespecting them. But they also have to acknowledge the fact that they may have also contributed to their disrespect And also they may have also disrespected Africans and other black immigrants. The you jump around and chase the lion, that you sleeping in huts, you are butt naked in Africa, all kinds of derogatory statement, the booty scratcher statement. Many Africans, Haitians, and black immigrant students, kids in the United States, and even adults will talk about the day when they face derogatory sentiment, disrespect from members of the African American community. They all have that story. Now, for African Americans, I do believe if many will look into the mirror and accept and acknowledge their own contribution, will tell you of a story when they themselves either disrespected an African person, a black immigrant person, or they watch it happen. They either laugh about it because it what brought the joy in them, or they did not do anything about it. So the disrespect is both ways. So I want to stress it in that term. Now, in terms of what is happening in the United States between Africans and African Americans or other black immigrants, there are many who've termed it diaspora war. It is not a diaspora war. I think it is a diaspora crisis, but also a diaspora stupidity, because both group are the groups of Africans, African Americans, ADARs, Black Americans or FBA, Caribbeans and other black groups in the United States, members of the diaspora. They all contribute to the foolishness, and to an extent, it appears to me like it's like a gang war, like a hood, to be stereotypical in this case, like a hood fight. People are engaging in a fight. Some of us can jump in and stop it, but instead we all want to die. We all want to ride or die with our clan. And what we do is we exacerbate the situation. We make it worse. We make it worse. Now, in terms of the United States, we are seeing the Trump administration attacking Africans and other black immigrants. And other immigrants. Latinos are being hunted down by ICE officials. Members of, quote unquote, the government or the security apparatus that doesn't even identify themselves. Many African Americans slash ADA slash FBA or black Americans are saying it is not their fight. I do believe it is your fight if you're an African American person, ADAS, FBA, or black Americans, whichever term you use to identify or you want to identify yourself against. It is your fight because at the end of the day, it is going to come back against you. For example, when Trump took over, he attacked African Americans. He attacked black American history. The Trumpers are basically ending teaching ethnic studies and African American studies in colleges and universities in school. Affirmative action was gutted. Trump, because of his foolishness, it is said that about 300,000 or more black women have lost their job automatically. Now, black people are very much strong in terms of their presence in local and national government jobs, especially administrative jobs. And many of these guys have lost their job. Many black Americans have lost their jobs. We are talking about professional, middle-class black American. Now, if you're saying what Trump is doing is not your fight, then you are basically losing here, because the Trumpers and ICE may not be out there roughing up black people on the street. However, they're attacking black people in terms of the emotional, in terms of the psychological aspect. Blacks are being attacked because at the end of the day, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, or millions will be out of jobs. Millions of black Americans will be out of jobs. Your history is being attacked. We are seeing MAGAs talking about reducing America's population to just 100 million white people. Now, MAGAs and the Trumpers may send an African or Haitian person or Caribbean blacks home to their country. They may deport Haitians or Asians and other non-white people in the United States. But for black Americans, a group of people that makes up about 46 to 47 million people, a community that is larger than most countries in the world. In addition, well, if you take away Native Americans, black Americans, in terms of their numbers and their importance in America, they are a force to be reckoned with. So for many MAGAs, many Trumpers, they want annihilation, extermination. It may not be the physical annihilation or extermination now, but for many white Republicans, conservative, many white supremacists, they want a psychological and emotional, historical annihilation of black Americans. So the fight is your fight. Now, for FBAs, there are men who are saying that they should delineate from Africa. Now, for me, if delineating from Africa will bring you respect, if keeping yourself from Pan-Africanism will bring you respect as a community, by all means do it. But I think it defeats the purpose. Now, many are calling for reparation, and they are right to do so. However, if you are saying that you have no connection to Africa, that you was here, and that you never came to the United States, to America as slaves, then perhaps you're creating a problem for yourself and for other blacks in the United States, other African Americans, because you are saying that you should be reparated, but then you are saying that you never experienced slavery, or that your ancestors never did, or that they were here. So that's a problem. Now let's assume you are the Native Americans that you claim to be, and that you don't have connection to Africa. You put other Africans or African Americans in a terrible situation, because you begin to make it difficult for their argument for reparation. So this is very interesting, and we are seeing a self-defeating narrative out there. Now, in terms of the conversation, there are many who are saying that they are not African or have no African tie, because I remember one man specifically saying that black Americans are good at any sport, that Africans are not good at the sports that black Americans play. Well, in Africa, Africans are not playing American football or baseball. The infrastructure is not there. Likewise, if you put an African American person on a soccer field, he is going to be horrible, because soccer is not strong in the black American community, in their culture. So the African Americans will not perform in soccer as Africans will, and vice versa. Africans will not perform stronger in American football or basketball and so on, and in other American sports, with the exceptions of Africans who've been here since they were little and they've played the sport since they were little. They are not going to perform well. So I'm hearing such crazy arguments being presented out there. The conversation that is being had on social media between Africans and African Americans, or within the black diaspora community, Africans, African Americans, or FBA, ADOS, and so on, Caribbean blacks, British or European blacks, and so on. It's being had on social media among people who just want to get subscribers, clicks, and so on. Of course, it is good that everyday people engage in a conversation, but by June, July, August, it was just regular people talking, and too many people were just spewing lots of nonsense out there. I'm actually happy as of now that I'm seeing lots of black intellectuals, Caribbeans, Africans, African Americans are now engaging in the conversation and putting to rest lots of the nonsense that have occurred on social media, because people are spreading foolishness, which is doing nothing but dividing the community. Now, in terms of many African Americans, there are those who are saying they don't want no connection with Africa, they have no connection, and that Pan-Africanism is dead. It is interesting at a time when the United States is experiencing trauma academically, emotionally, technologically, financially, economically. I think as a black person, decoupling from Africa and from the African diaspora, members of your community which you will need to form an alliance with, I think is self-defeating. It is interesting that many people are doubting what is happening in the United States, okay? And black Americans are supporting it or strongly embracing it, while we are seeing MAGA basically rain down insults on black Americans. Just recently, there were messages of young Republicans that were basically published, of young Republicans making some civil war slash hatred slash some Hitlerish slash white supremacist slash KKK slash Nazi statements against Jews, African Americans, blacks, and other non-whites. So it is very interesting. For the black community, Too many things are going on social media by regular people who are not thinking about what they say and they are just speaking. And they are basically rubbing a lot of people wrongly. Now, in recent times, in the past 2 days, there was an Asian lady who I've seen many of her videos. She had spoke many things that basically you can say that she's an ally with the black community. She said many things in solidarity with the black or African American community. However, she made a video recently where she basically stated that some African Americans or some blacks are coward for not being out there engaging in the protest to trying to fight what's happening in America. And many have been coming at her, calling her the enemy. It is bad. This is a lady that have said positive things, that have been in solidarity with the black community. All of a sudden, she said things that many people don't like. Now she becomes the enemy. Now, friends, this is one of the reasons why I believe that many people around the world, many other ethnic groups, individuals, are afraid to say things relating to black people, especially blacks in America, because of fear that they may say something wrong, then everybody will come at them. But this lady, I have seen many of her videos where she say positive things. She speak in solidarity with black Americans or black people and minority groups. But she said one thing that people don't like, and everybody came at her. But if you look at what she's saying, look, if you do not want to go out there to protest as a black person, to fight what ICE is doing, by all means, don't. But when you are trying to prevent other people, okay, you're trying to make other people, discourage other people, other Africans or blacks or African Americans from engaging in, then you're defeating all of us. If you do not want to go out there, don't. But she is saying, stop discouraging other people from engaging in the conversation, from engaging in protest. So it is very interesting that those who are saying that Africans are trying to take some of the African Americans' reparation money if the money comes. The truth here is Africans are not trying to take away African Americans' reparation money. Africans and Caribbean countries are basically pushing the fight for African Americans' reparation, and they're also pushing the fight for their own reparation because of what the individual countries within the community have experienced as a result of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. Look, the best allies that the African American community has is the Africans, the Caribbean, and other blacks within the diaspora. These communities are fighting for the betterment of everyone. Now, friends, please tell me what you think, and I really want to know what you think. However, friends, I am going to end here. I want to thank you for being a member of the Echoing Voice community, my friends, but most especially and most importantly, or most important, my friends, I want to thank you a lot for watching the Echoing Voice. Peace, my friends. Peace.